What if I told you that Starbucks wasn't originally about coffee at all? That it started not with cozy cafes, but with three teachers trying to sell coffee beans out of a tiny Seattle shop? This is the surprising origin of one of the most recognizable brands in the world. But how did a simple storefront turn into a global empire with over 30,000 locations? What made millions believe they couldn't start their day without a Starbucks cup in hand? Let's explore the journey of this coffee giant. The year was 1971. In the historic Pike Place market of Seattle, three friends, Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Bowker, decided to open a store. But it wasn't what you'd expect. Starbucks was born as a retailer for high-quality coffee beans and equipment. No espresso machines, no baristas, and definitely no grande caramel macchiatos. The name? Inspired by a character from the novel Moby Dick, Starbuck, the coffee-loving first mate. They believed the name evoked the romance of the high seas and the seafaring tradition of coffee trading. But the story really takes off 10 years later, when a young salesman named Howard Schultz walks into their store. Schultz wasn't a barista. He worked in sales for a company that sold coffee machines. But the moment he stepped into Starbucks, he felt something, a spark. He saw potential in what the brand could become. Not just a bean shop, but a place, a feeling, a third space between home and work. But the original founders didn't agree with his vision. They didn't want to run a cafe. They wanted to stay true to their original idea, selling beans and equipment. Because when Schultz visited Milan, he didn't just see espresso bars. He saw culture, community, ritual. Why couldn't Americans enjoy coffee the way Italians did, standing at the bar, talking to the barista, feeling connected? When he returned, he knew what he had to do. He raised money, launched his own cafe concept, and built it around the Italian experience. It was more than just coffee. It was about human connection. Howard Schultz named his new cafe Il Giornale, and it quickly became a hit. Customers weren't just coming in for caffeine, they were coming in for the experience. Italian music played softly, the smell of roasted beans filled the air, and baristas actually talked to people. It felt like something new in America, something intimate, something meaningful. But Schultz hadn't forgotten about Starbucks. In 1987, he got the chance to buy the original company from the three founders who were ready to move on. Schultz brought together investors, purchased Starbucks, and merged it with his own concept. That moment marked the true birth of the Starbucks we know today. But here's the question. How do you take a local cafe vibe and scale it across the world without losing the magic? Schultz believed the key was storytelling and consistency. Every store, every cup, every interaction had to feel intentional. The green logo, the cup sizes, the names of the drinks, it was all part of a carefully crafted universe. He didn't want Starbucks to be just a brand. He wanted it to be a lifestyle. But it wasn't smooth sailing. Critics laughed at the idea of selling expensive coffee in paper cups. $4 for a latte, they'd say? And yet, people lined up. Why? Because Starbucks wasn't selling coffee, it was selling belonging. A place to sit, to work, to think, to feel seen. Students came in to study, artists to sketch, couples to talk. The stores became modern-day gathering spaces. Schultz doubled down. He focused on company culture, training baristas to treat customers like guests in their own home. He introduced the third place concept, a space that wasn't home and wasn't work, but something in between. People didn't even realize they needed it until it existed. And by the mid-1990s, Starbucks wasn't just a chain, it was a phenomenon. New stores opened every day. The green mermaid logo became a symbol of upward mobility, creativity, and modern urban life. Howard Schultz named his new cafe Il Giornale, and from the moment it opened, it was clear something was different. This wasn't just a place to grab a drink. It felt like a slice of Europe tucked inside America. Customers didn't just order coffee. They lingered, they chatted, they felt at home. Schultz had successfully recreated the Italian cafe culture that had inspired him in Milan, complete with standing bars, smooth jazz playing in the background, and an atmosphere that said, "Take your time." And yet, in the back of his mind, one name kept echoing: Starbucks. The original founders weren't interested in serving lattes, but Schultz knew that name held power. In 1987, when they finally agreed to sell, he seized the opportunity. He rallied investors and acquired the six-store Starbucks chain for $3.8 million. That's when things truly took off. Schultz didn't just merge his cafe with Starbucks, he reshaped the entire identity of the brand. The focus shifted from selling beans to serving an experience. One question guided everything: how do you scale warmth, connection, and authenticity? How do you make 10,000 stores feel like one? Schultz's answer was simple, but revolutionary: standardization with soul. He built systems that ensured every store had the same aroma, lighting, layout, and training. The green siren logo became a beacon. The terminology, grande, venti, tall, was strange at first, but quickly became part of pop culture. He created not just a menu, but a language. Still, people doubted him. Analysts warned that Americans wouldn't pay $4 for coffee. Starbucks became a status symbol, a comfort zone, a quiet escape. It wasn't about the product, but the pause. Where else could you feel productive and relaxed at the same time? Where else could you walk in alone and feel like you belonged? In a time when city life was growing more disconnected, Starbucks filled a need people hadn't realized they had. Schultz didn't stop at the counter. He built a company culture around passion and purpose. Baristas were called partners and were trained to craft drinks with care. Customers were encouraged to customize their orders, to make their drink theirs. The smallest details mattered: the type of cup, the warmth of the foam, even writing names on cups. Starbucks wasn't invading cities. It was becoming part of them. The company went public in 1992. The IPO raised $25 million, and Starbucks stock soared. Schultz used the money to grow further, but always with one eye on quality. That balance between growth and experience became his greatest challenge. How do you stay small while going big? How do you keep each store from becoming just another chain? As Starbucks expanded across America and beyond, Schultz found himself at a crossroads. Success was no longer the goal, it was the expectation. The company had become a cultural force, appearing in TV shows, films, and morning routines around the globe. But with size came risk. Stores began popping up on every corner. Critics accused Starbucks of turning into the very thing Schultz swore it would never be: a soulless corporate giant. The one special third-place experience started to feel predictable. Schultz knew the danger. He stepped down as CEO in 2000, hoping that the systems he'd built would keep the soul alive. But in just 7 years, the company began to drift. Sales plateaued. Customer satisfaction dropped. The coffee, not as hot. The foam, too thin. Stores started to feel more like factories than cafes. In 2008, amidst the financial crisis, Schultz came back, not as a figurehead, but as a fixer. He closed over 600 underperforming stores, retrained thousands of baristas, and even shut down every U.S. location for a full day to reset standards. That move sent a clear message. This wasn't about numbers. It was about people, about rediscovering what made Starbucks matter in the first place. Schultz doubled down on innovation. He embraced technology, launching one of the first mobile order and pay systems. He introduced Starbucks Reserve, a premium line of rare beans and high-end brewing methods. The company even committed to ethical sourcing, environmental sustainability, and offering benefits to part-time employees, moves that were rare, even radical, in corporate America. But perhaps Schultz's boldest vision wasn't in coffee at all. It was in community. He saw Starbucks as a platform for social change. Whether it was offering college tuition to employees or hosting forums on race and equality, Starbucks positioned itself not just as a brand, but as a voice. And yet, challenges remained. The world was changing. Drive-thrus surged, remote work emptied cafes, and new competitors like boutique coffee shops and global chains emerged. Could Starbucks still be the place when people weren't looking for places at all? The answer, it seemed, was to evolve without forgetting. But here's the real twist. Starbucks never set out to be a coffee company. It set out to be an experience company, a brand built not on flavor, but on feeling. And the real question isn't how it became so big, it's how it convinced millions of people that their $5 coffee was worth every cent. Maybe the secret wasn't in the cup at all, but in the way it made them feel. So next time you sip that latte, ask yourself, are you drinking coffee, or are you drinking comfort, identity, and a sense of place in a fast-moving world?